Now, live from Artie's Cut Rate Liquor Store, shooting range, candle shop, bowling alley, massage parlor, it's the Dave and Doc Podcast.
Hello, hello.
Happy day. Welcome back.
Welcome back. It is show number 38 of the Dave and Doc Podcast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Doc.
And
we're getting back in. We're back.
We're back in the swing of things.
Yeah, we got 2 weeks in a row. This is good.
Yeah, this is good. I mean, things are starting to settle down a little bit now.
Think
You
so.
know, we had the
Think so.
holidays and
Yep.
coming up.
Happy New Year.
I had that bad case of syphilis.
Right. It's okay. Penicillin.
It's
2.4 million units.
Appreciate
Damn.
that. I appreciate that.
That's it. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Squeeze it in. Squeeze it out.
That's
I knew it. I knew it.
I had to throw that in there. Hey, a lot of happenings since last week.
Lots of things.
As a matter of fact. And
But don't forget, how can they go to the website?
go to the website, folks. DaveandDoc.com, DaveAndDoc.com. You can go there to listen to it, subscribe to it, watch it.
YouTube.
And yeah, you can do all the stuff right there. It's all right there on the website.
We're there.
If you do the YouTube thing,
Please subscribe.
Do YouTube like you
Do
do.
you YouTube? Do you? Yeah.
Help me help you do the YouTube like you do.
That's right.
Please subscribe. That would help things out a whole lot, and it would make me very happy.
Yes.
And life is
And
so
we
much
know,
better.
And we
when
know
I'm
it's all about your happiness.
happy. It is. It's all about my happiness and my well-being.
Less stress, less rants.
That's yeah. Well,
Yeah.
then now no one is going to subscribe because that's. I get more comments about the rants than I do anything else.
Oh, never. Well, go ahead and subscribe. We'll do more rants. How
We'll
about
do
that?
more rants.
That'd be good.
I promise you, something will piss me off, folks. I promise you.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't take a lot.
I mean, yeah. That's
We may even hear one today.
like
I don't know.
death, taxes, and Dave rants. I mean, it's gonna happen because people just been doing stupid stuff since the beginning, right?
They
I mean,
really have
That's just
been.
the way.
It's people.
It's just the way it is.
Society in general. I just don't. I don't understand. We've kind of flipped. We'll get into this a little later. 'Cause I forgot I wanted to bring this up.
See, it always morphs.
It does. I
okay.
totally forgot I wanted to bring this up. This is from another podcast. Aaron Andrews and Carissa Thompson have a podcast called Calm Down. And
Maybe we should ask them to be on the show.
they could be some in-studio guest. We might be divorced after. Good night. But their podcast is funny because it's like just two girlfriends talking on the phone. I mean, that's what it's like, and it's really funny. But Carissa told a story that was funny, and I'm like, you know what? That kind of like speaks to society in general a little bit now. So that'll be fun to get into at the end.
We can do it. That'd be good.
We'll do it at the end.
That'd be good.
But of course, as we always start, we start with our world class,
That's right. World famous.
world famous.
Can't beat it.
Can't beat it.
The stick.
Can't beat it with a stick. It's better than Arby's. We have the jokes here.
That's it. And so this week, and we're going to get into college football because of the, and thank goodness Georgia won, man. But the disappointment from the maize and blue.
Yeah, definitely.
So these jokes are dedicated to Coach Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines because they are Michigan jokes.
Oh
okay?
no, here we go.
So
sorry, Jimmy.
here you go. So over half the deer in Michigan have contracted COVID. Okay.
Yeah.
So what that means is it's just more proof that not only has this disease cost a few bucks, but also a lot of dough.
Goodness
Michigan
gracious.
lawyer. Well, Barney, so you want me to defend you? Have you got any money? Barney. No, sir. I ain't got no money, but I do get a 1928 Ford car. Lawyer. Well, you can raise money on that. Now, let's see. Just what did they accuse you of stealing? Barney, a 1928 Ford car. Oh. Oh, this is bad. This is bad. Biden has won so many times in Michigan now, he's legally required to change his name to Ohio State.
Oh.
Not this year, but.
Right.
But, hello.
Oh.
A Michigan State fan, a Notre Dame fan, and a Michigan fan are climbing a mountain and arguing about who loves their team the most.
Yeah.
The MSU fan insists that he is the most loyal and then yells, "This is for Spartans," and jumps off the mountain. Not to be outdone, the Notre Dame fan next professes his love for his team. He screams, "This is for the Irish." The unsuspecting Michigan fan is subsequently pushed off and falls down the mountain. What is the state? What state is Lake Michigan in?
What?
In liquid state.
Oh my gosh.
And the finality, the final countdown, the final straw. This is my favorite by far. 2 guys from Michigan die and wake up in hell.
Okay.
Yep.
All
They're
right.
still in Michigan.
That's right. Hey, funny story here.
And that triggers a story. I love it.
It's a real quick one. So what we used to do is funny in radio when we did radio. It was funny to call up Hell, Michigan, which is a real place, folks. Look it up. You call the town hall.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Welcome to hell.
Yeah, and you call the town hall and you ask them what the temperature in hell is. And we would do it all the time. And it was so funny. They thought it was hilarious. This little old lady.
It's Hell?
Yeah, Hell, Michigan. Yeah. And so.
Of course it is.
It is. And so we would call them.
And of course it's in Michigan.
This little old lady would answer the phone. She'd say, like, Hell Courthouse or Hell City Hall or whatever she would say. And it would say, "Hey, we're just wondering what the temperature today in hell is." She's, "Well, it's 32 degrees in hell."
So you're saying hell has frozen over?
Yes.
That's it. But
Yes.
Hell,
yeah.
Michigan.
So Hell, Michigan.
Of course it's in Michigan.
Of course it is. And speaking of Michigan.
I used to live in Michigan. But anyway, yeah.
Speaking of Michigan.
Yay. Yay.
So in the college football playoff,
We're just getting right to it.
You beat me.
We're just getting
You beat me.
Yeah, because Marvin Harrison got knocked out of the game.
Yeah.
And then Ryan Day, just for men, Grecian formula number 882, can't manage the clock, and you're going to let your kicker kick a 50-yard field goal when Stroud can run 20 yards on any play that he chooses.
Do you remember,
had time.
It was sometime like in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a color that Chevy had for trucks it was midnight black. Ryan Day's beard looks midnight
Yeah,
black.
dude.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you're right.
Yeah.
He's like, he accidentally swallowed some just for men.
That is unnatural.
It's coming out of
It
his
is
pores.
unnatural.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the official spokesperson.
And if he's calling the plays for Ohio State, you and I were talking before we went on, what is he doing? Dude, you can get another 15, 20 yards and make that field goal and win the game.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I mean, terrible clock management, terrible play calling. You were driving with no problem at the end of the game. I mean, I'm sitting there watching this. And I'm like, they're going to get to like the 12 or something and kick an easy stinking field goal. And then all of a sudden, everybody's brain just melted down. I was like, this is awesome. He's going to have to kick a 50 plus, 50. It was right at the dot, 50-yard field goal.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close.
No.
I was like, why would you do that to your kicker?
That thing's still floating to
There's
the left.
enough pressure as it is, but man,
A 50-yard field
goal. It was
goal?
like he toe-balled it. That looked terrible.
Yeah, it looked like me hitting a golf ball. Actually, it was a little better than me hitting a golf ball, but still bad. Still bad.
Goodness. Anyway, yeah, bad. And of course, like I said, Marvin Harrison doesn't get hurt. I don't know. I think it's a different game.
You and I were talking. I think they beat Georgia by
and
a few scores.
I think he honestly was trying to. I think Stroud was trying to throw it out of the end zone, maybe.
I do too.
And didn't get enough arm on it or something funky. And I think Harrison thought somebody, was gonna pick it off.
Yeah.
And so then he's trying to make a play on the ball, and he just got shellacked.
Yeah, he got popped.
But I mean, they totally outplayed Georgia. Georgia just didn't quit because Georgia's been there before. Georgia was not going to be, they weren't going to give up, and then you got to have some breaks go your way.
Yeah.
But I got my victory, but I didn't call the score right.
Oh, when did?
I mean, we knew it was going to be. I mean, I knew that was going to be a competitive game.
Is it like over 200 points scored in both games?
Yeah,
together?
it was a record.
It was ridiculous
for the
whatever it was. I forget, but yeah, it was ridiculous. TCU Michigan. First of all, I still think that was targeting.
Oh gosh, yeah, at the end of the game. He totally lowers his head and plowed into him.
Now, I don't know if Michigan could have got down the field and scored. I don't know if that would have happened, but still, it should have been a 15-yard penalty.
I think that they had a shot.
I think they definitely had a shot.
I think they had a shot. Now, they made some bonehead calls, and TCU just, number one, I can't. The whole thing. Talking about the SEC. So we get the matchup that we want. I mean, I'm ready now, but I'm a little worried. Georgia gets off to a super slow start against TCU. They're not going to be able to do what they did to Ohio State, and then they're in trouble. But man, Michigan laid an egg.
Yeah,
I was pretty disappointed. Now they kept fighting.
Yeah.
But you can't let yourself get down by that much.
No.
And just keep having to crawl, and not getting stops, and it was frustrating.
I think
that was a frustrating game.
I think Michigan is one of those teams, like a lot of teams, that are really good, but the highlight of their year is that rivalry game at the end of the year.
Yeah,
and I think every bit of emotion and everything, and I know they won their conference.
Oh yeah,
and I get that.
Second year in a row.
Excuse me. I mean, Harbaugh's only lost 2 games in 2 years, and both of them been in the playoff. But, I think that, they go into that Ohio State game, and they essentially blew Ohio State out in the second half of that game.
Oh, yeah. They totally blew Ohio State.
And I think that sometimes those games are good and bad. Like, they gear up all year to play that game, and then they play a TCU team, which maybe TCU beats Georgia, and we all say, okay, we were all wrong. But they play a TCU team that they should have beaten by a few scores.
I agree. I definitely believe that. Like I said, that was very shocking to me that they got beat.
Yeah,
and of course, you can blame any level. You can't have 2 pick sixes. Number one,
that's very true.
2 pick sixes in one game, you're probably not going to win.
Right.
The majority of the time. Turnovers, they just didn't, just didn't make good decisions, and that's a shame. That's a shame because they should have won.
I do think Georgia's a good team, and I think that they deserve to be ranked number 1. I'm glad to see them in the championship game. I've watched probably 4 or 5 Georgia games this year. And they remind me a little bit of Florida State a few years ago. They won the national championship. The next year, every other game went down to the wire. Florida State's winning these games, pulling them out of their butts at the last second of the game. Somebody breaks a big run.
Right.
Jameis threw a touchdown at the last second. And they're close games that should not be close because everybody's giving you their best shot. But
that's why it's so hard to repeat. 6 teams have ever had outright. Now, there's been co-champs, so they'll win one year and the other year be co-champs, but only 6 teams in history of the NCAA have ever been back-to-back outright champs.
Yeah,
which is crazy. And of course, I think Alabama's in there. There's like 12 or 13 where I think people have been co-champs. And, so total, and Alabama's done it 3 times.
Yeah.
Of course, Alabama was the most recent one,
right?
Going back in 2011, 2012. So they're trying to do something that's extremely hard. And that's historical because like way back there in the 1800s, there are like 3 of them. Like the 1880s. That's like Yale somebody. And so you're like, okay, so 3 of these were people that were before that was 2 centuries ago. So it's incredibly hard to do. And so that's what you're saying because they get everybody's best shot every single time.
I just think that when I was watching Florida State that year, I'm like, they're due a loss. They're just due a loss. And I think Georgia's due a loss.
I know. Well, and I thought they were going to lose to Missouri. They barely pulled it up. So, and I thought that would wake them up. And I was like, okay, that's their game that they were actually destined to lose. And they didn't lose. But then they have this happen in the playoff, and you're like, yep, Marvin Harrison stays in that junior. Marvin Harrison Jr. stays in that game. I don't think they win.
I don't either.
I think it ends up being like an 11-point ball game or something like that. But that's the breaks. Football's got a crazy way of having stuff like that happen. So
I think you're right, though. When you're talking about repeating, it's hard in any sport, right? It's really hard. It's hard in the NBA. It's hard in college basketball. It's hard in It's hard in professional football,
Yep.
college football.
All of it.
It's really hard because I think the one thing you said, the breaks have to go your way too. Because it's why we haven't seen another undefeated team in the NFL. And I know the Patriots came close, New York Giants.
David Tyree.
Yeah, let
me catch it on my head.
Velcro and duct tape,
Right.
or whatever happened there.
There's stuff on those gloves.
Yeah, right.
It's like, well, there you go. And on his head. They put stickum on his helmet.
They put stickum on his helmet. But yes, it's so difficult, and the last team to repeat were the Patriots, I think.
Yeah, 2003, 2004,
Yeah,
I believe.
And before that, the Cowboys did it.
Yep, in the 90s.
Yeah, they did the 91 and 92 Cowboys, or 92. Yeah, 91 and 92 Cowboys. The Niners did it in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the Dolphins in the 70s.
The Dolphins in the 70s, and the Steelers did it twice.
Yeah, which is incredible.
Which is absolutely incredible. It just doesn't happen a lot,
Right.
Because
in pro sports, yeah. In NCAA basketball, I guess didn't Florida go back to back? I think Florida went back
in
the early
2000s. Yeah,
and then before that, it was Duke.
Yeah,
and when Duke did it, I don't think anybody had done it since UCLA had done it.
You mean UNLV didn't go back to back those 2 years?
Oh no, sir, they did not.
I knew you'd like that.
They did not. Do you want to know why?
How come?
Because if you've ever watched I Hate Christian Laettner,
Yes.
so eloquently narrated by Rob Lowe,
Yeah,
whose son actually graduated from Duke.
Yes,
and
that's right.
And did not cheat, I might add, to get into Duke.
right.
Lori Loughlin, William H. Macy and your wife, whatever her name is.
Everywhere you look.
Yeah, so, right. There's a cheetah and some money to buy you. Massimo.
She's still hot though, by the way.
You can't deny.
I'm just saying that I don't know how old she is. She's older than me, but she's still hot.
I don't know.
She probably looks good in orange too.
Good look.
Waka, waka.
Like an orange jumpsuit.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, no, Christian Laettner,
Yeah.
2 free throws, put him out.
It was a great
Put
UNLV team.
Put them out. They were undefeated. They were undefeated. They were supposed to roll them because the year before they beat them 101-71.
They did.
They absolutely destroyed them. Or as Christian Laettner said, they slaughtered us.
Yeah.
That was his exact quote. But they came back and proved that what happens the year before does not necessarily translate into the
And that was
next
in
year.
the Final Four, right?
That was in the Final Four
Yeah.
because then they went on. So they beat them. I believe it was 77-75. They were 76-74. I can't remember. But,
Post-game.
But then they beat Kansas when Roy Williams was the coach of Kansas, 72-65.
Right. Yeah.
And that was, Kansas was fighting, and then what happened near the end is Brian Davis gets a breakaway on the inbounds pass and dunks it, and that puts them up 72-65, and that was the end. I can still vividly see, because, his elevation on that dunk was incredible. Yeah.
CBS.
I'm a little bit of a Duke fan, in case anybody was wondering.
A little trivia for you. CBS did the broadcast as they always do.
Yes.
They have like a 3,000-year contract with the NCAA.
Right.
And they do a good job they do a great job with March Madness and
Jim
basketball.
Nance is pretty clutch.
Yeah, he's clutch.
Pretty clutch.
But when the
And Raftery and Grant Hill now, the three of them, and also I just real quickly point out, I know you're trying to, the key thing of all of this with Duke and the Duke lore, Johnny Dawkins in the 85-86 team set the tone because he was the first really, really, really good player that Coach K had.
Yeah.
And then, there were no championships in Durham with Coach K until Grant Hill came to Durham.
Yeah.
And I will always say, Christian Laettner was the greatest winner, but Grant Hill was the greatest basketball player in the history of Duke basketball.
Grant Hill is amazing.
Yes. And injuries kind of derailed him in the pros. He still had a great career.
He did.
Made tons of money, but his foot problem things. But the greatest Duke basketball player is Grant Hill. I don't care what anybody says. The guy could shoot. He could pass it. He could dribble it. He could rebound. He could play defense. And for the total package, there's nobody better. And the difference when they played UNLV the second year was you had a Grant Hill. Even though he was a freshman, you had a Grant Hill. And so I'll tell you, the moment I believed that they could beat him, it's in the first half of the game. You can look this up. And so Bobby Hurley gets a steal, and he's driving to the basket. And I believe it's Stacey Augmon who was a really great defender, always was, for UNLV, and in the pros too. He jumps because he thinks he's going to just pack him against the glass. And what Bobby does is, if you watch it, here comes Grant coming behind him, and Bobby, just that incredible vision, and he flips it behind his head, and Grant dunks it.
Yeah.
And it was like, in that moment, you were just like, I believe, because the year before that would have never happened.
No.
And they just kept it tight, and UNLV choked. Anyway, so go. Sorry, so I could go all day with some Duke. Anyway, go ahead. I got my sister bought me the K book, it's newspaper articles. So it's basically talking about Mike Krzyzewski's legacy.
Yeah.
I got that for Christmas, so it's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Anyway, keep going. So we got derailed.
So
CBS does a great job. Hello, friends.
Do you remember the song they played in the pregame to kind of bring you into the game? There's that.
I don't know the other one then.
No, they actually played like an actual song to showcase like all the kids that were playing in the game, like all the starters and everything. It was Small Town from John Cougar Mellencamp.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey,
there you go.
I did not know that.
And they were showing like pictures of little baby Grant Hill and little baby Christian Leitner.
No, I didn't know that. How about that?
Yeah. So there you go. Little college football.
Small Town is also used on the NBA Superstars on VHS for Larry Bird's highlight reel for the tape. It's like NBA Superstars 2.
Oh Lord.
And so the first one is Magic Johnson, and they play Janet Jackson Control.
Right.
And then they play Larry Bird, Small Town. And then I think the third one is, I believe it's Michael Jordan, and it's Berlin, Take My Breath Away. And then the fourth one is Charles Barkley, The Warrior by Scandal.
Yes.
So there you go. Anyway, and there's several on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Larry Bird's Small Town.
I used to watch the old NFL videos.
Yes.
A buddy of mine had them.
There's so many
on
of them.
VHS, and I still remember they did that Richie Sambora song, One Light Burning or whatever, and they were showing defensive hits, and I'm like, this is the worst choice of music I've ever. They were terrible, but I watched them anyway.
Of course you did, because that was it.
And that was in the 80s when there was just, the videos were just basically of the 49ers at that point. So I'm like, yeah, this is the way life should be. So college football playoff.
Not that he's proud of them or anything, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
Not that he's proud.
Not that you can tell.
Not that he's proud.
So
Brock Purdy.
College football playoff.
Amazing.
Monday night national championship.
Oh, man.
Predict the final score.
Okay. So I'm going high scoring because apparently defense, has just gone out the window.
Apparently it's gone.
I'm going 48-45 Georgia.
48-45 Georgia?
Yep, 48-45.
I'm going to go, what do I think here?
And TCU's going to have a chance to kick a field goal, and the guy's going to tie, and the guy's going to miss it. That's what's going to happen.
I'm going to say 42-38 TCU.
Ooh! I'm gonna throw up if that happens, and it could. It could happen.
I think they're just due a loss. I don't know, and it doesn't mean that.
If they go undefeated back-to-back seasons,
it's unbelievable.
Wow,
it's unbelievable.
I hope they. And I'm not. Like I said, we've talked about it. Georgia fans are the worst. They are the worst. D-bag supremes. Put the extra squirt of Massengill up in there and just let it drain out. It's just, they're just such D-bags. And it makes me so infuriated. Oh,
what you putting in your nose, Johnny?
I can't stand them, but I just, I like Kirby Smart. I really do.
I do too.
I really do. And I cannot root for Sonny Dykes. I will never root for Sonny Dykes for another thing that man does in his whole career. And I feel a little bit bad for Gary Patterson because really built that culture.
Of course he did, yeah.
And they got a little fed up with him and whatnot. And, they want him to fire his assistant coaches. And he was like, I'm not doing that. And so they got rid of him type of deal, all that mess. But Sonny Dykes turned it around quick because they were kind of on the struggle bus a little bit. But I will never on camera, and I'm a man of my word, I will never root for TCU in anything. No.
What if Sonny Dykes leaves?
Doesn't matter.
No?
I'm still not rooting for him. Guilty by association. Sorry, Horned Frogs, Horny Toads. You're going down. You're not.
The Horned Frogs versus the Dogs.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Oh, well.
What? I'm not going to tell that story. Never mind. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. I was going to tell you a story of a person, a homeless man we encountered down in Athens when my buddies and I went down there when we were in our 5th football season, because we went to every game. Yeah, my buddy Chris went to every game, and that's when we played. That's when I really knew Georgia fans were just awful. Anyway, but I will not tell that story on the air. If you can send us an email, send us a comment, and I might respond to you in what actually happened.
There you go. Info@DaveDoc038.
That's it.
So one of the big happenings this week, of course, was Monday night, and I was actually watching the game when it happened. And
I missed it because I saw it on replay because I was getting Cal in the bed, but I actually missed the original.
It was weird because Higgins comes over the middle, catches a short pass, and they collide. But it looked as routine as possible to me.
He hit him pretty hard though. I mean, it was a collision. But I mean, you have violent collisions in football. This is what happens.
These are two 200+ pound guys hitting each other, and it
would have killed you or I. I mean, because the speed of T. Higgins, and he's not a small guy.
No.
And basically Hamlin is not running himself, but absorbing all that.
Yeah.
And then they flip over. It almost looked like Higgins tackled him.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, I'm watching it, and, I see him get up. He adjusts his helmet, and he just, in the way he fell down, this is just me being honest. In watching the game and watching how he fell down, I thought he was dead.
He did die.
Well, I mean, I thought he was not revivable, gone.
Well, if the training staff had not acted immediately, he would be dead, or they might have got him back, but his noodle would have been messed up forever because he was
no oxygen. And
right. So
he's down, and then people are running out immediately, and then ESPN would come back to the broadcast and go away, come back, go away, come back, and go away. And we had heard that they pulled out an AED, and I'm like, this, and they're doing CPR for multiple minutes on the field.
And even at one point tried to get him on the ambulance, had to bring him back down because they lost the rhythm trying to get him on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, me not being pessimistic, but I thought, the first thing I thought he was dead, and then they're doing CPR. I'm like, okay. But then my brain tells me that, like, they're doing CPR and the ambulance and everything, but we're going to find out in a few minutes that they pronounced him dead. That's what I thought was going to happen. And lo and behold, now, days later, he's up talking, like FaceTimed his team and everything. That's awesome. That's great.
Absolutely.
But it was wild to watch the whole thing unfold. So first of all, my question is, medically, what actually happened? Let me tell you how I understood it.
And we don't know 100% for sure, but I can talk about what because my buddies, one of my buddies, Jordan, actually texted me, and he was like, Doc, what the heck just happened?
Right.
It almost looked like he got knocked out, but it just looked weird. And so I'm like, I didn't see it. I'm getting counted. So I come downstairs. Of course, they're not showing it. So of course, where do we go to find Twitter? Because it's all over Twitter.
Of course it is. Yeah.
And so I see it, and I'm like, I'm like blunt force trauma. So to talk about kind of from your perspective, and then I'll kind of take you through what went through my head medically when I watched what went down.
So when I saw it, and I saw the replay and saw the replay and saw the replay, because I just kept rewinding and watching it. And the first thing that come to my mind was baseball. And this is why. When Steven, our oldest, was playing baseball, one of the coaches says, hey, you need to get the extra padding to go over his heart. Mm-hmm. That way, if he takes a ball to the chest, chances are he's going to be just fine. He's going to be bruised and sore, might even crack something, but he ain't going to die. And so I thought about that, and I'm like, well, T. Higgins he kind of did hit him in the chest there, and like when he came down, he kind of came down on it. I'm like,
he got him a little bit under the shoulder, like the mm-hmm. chest plate. If you watch the angle, he almost hit him with an upstroke too. Yeah. So that was the other thing. He got a little more of a blow underneath the pad than what you would normally see, just because kind of the way he was positioned with the way Hamlin's coming down and try to tackle him.
Yeah.
So that makes a difference too.
And so I saw that, and I'm like, maybe he just got hit too hard in the chest, and it was just such a blunt trauma that it stopped his heart. I mean, so medically, is that actually what happened?
So and again, like I said, we don't know for sure, but and you probably have read this now. I mean, the medical term is actually called commotio cordis, and what that means is there is an event that happens where a blunt force trauma to the heart actually disrupts what we call repolarization. So your heart's like an electrical circuit. So you have the signal going. So the depolarization is when the heart squeezes, because that electrical impulse causes, and this is happening like this, of course.
Right.
So, but that's what causes the heart to squeeze, is that electrical current.
Right.
And so the signal goes from up top here down, kind of towards your nipple area, and kind of down just below that in the chest wall area. And so then you have, like any electrical current, you have to have repolarization.
Sure.
Which is where it charges itself back up. And again, this is happening very instantaneously.
Right.
I mean, you can watch slower circuits of things and actually see the current, the way it conducts and everything. So what happens is that blow happens at just the right time.
Right.
When where your heart is trying to repolarize, and it disrupts the repolarization, and it basically stops your heart.
Right.
And it puts you, it doesn't stop it. What it does first is it puts you into this rhythm called ventricular fibrillation. And so fibrillating means quiver, basically, is, think of it that way. And so the ventricles are the bottom chambers of your heart, and your left ventricle is the largest chamber, because that's where the blood is actually pushed out to go to the rest of your body. It goes through your aorta, and from there is distributed all over your body through other blood vessels. And so when you get hit there, the current can't continue to conduct. So that's why he gets up, and it's like you kind of think it's going to be okay, because in that moment he's getting some of that V-fib beat. And it's kind of like his body's working, and then it's like, oh no, and then he's out. Yeah, and that's why when he fell like this, I mean, it's like arms open to heaven. Yeah, because in that moment he's dead, because his heart that was it, that was the end. And so now he doesn't have the right circulation, and so it was the blunt force trauma in the hitting him at just the right time in the cardiac cycle, and sending him into a ventricular arrhythmia or abnormal rhythm. And always remember, ventricular rhythms are the ones that are truly not sustainable, whether it's the quivering or whether it's just the bottom's beating really fast. And we call that tachycardia.
Either way, yeah.
VTAC, VFib, ventricular tachycardia, ventricular fibrillation, neither of those are good. You cannot maintain that. Those are not compatible with life. Right. And so he gets hit in that moment. And I mean, and it's, the timing on this is so small. I mean, it has to be a perfect event. That's why you don't see it a lot. And so it disrupted that, and then he's sitting there, and the bottom's quivering, but he's got nothing up top, so there's not a natural smooth motion, and then he's out. Right. And unfortunately, I mean, they got out there, and they didn't think he got knocked out there, like something bad's going on. And you can see on some of the discussions now, or some of what they're releasing. They were telling people, go to the cart now. I don't like the way he fell, so immediately the healthcare personnel knew something was wrong. Right. They weren't just like, oh, he got a bad hit. It's like, no, you don't just fall backwards like that. And I mean, he looked like he was dead.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and he did. So when you're having CPR put on you, you have died. And then you have been resuscitated through heroic measures.
So let me ask you this then. So in this small, tiny instant in time that he got the hit, he's normally a healthy person, I imagine. I mean, he's an athlete. Right. I mean, we're making some assumptions here.
Right. And that doesn't necessarily matter in this case. He doesn't have to have any structural heart disease or anything.
But also, too, with an AED, wouldn't the likelihood of starting someone's heart, I mean, we know it worked in his case, wouldn't the likelihood of starting someone's heart who is otherwise healthy in this situation be pretty high?
No.
Really?
60% chance that he was going to be okay.
Wow.
About right at 60%.
That low.
In what we're assuming happening in true commotio cordis. Wow. No, it is not great odds, because this is a fluke thing, basically. Sure. And so no, it does not matter if you're, if you have done all the right things your whole life. This thing is so crazy. It has truly just ruined the electrical current. And so, yeah, it's about 60, about 3/5, 60% will live. So you're literally talking, I think it's 58 or something like that. So
about a 40% chance he could have died.
That's
right
correct.
there.
That's correct.
Or stayed dead.
And not made it. Right. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing to me.
And so it is. It's very, very scary, and that's the crazy thing about it. And so you really have to give a lot of credit to the healthcare personnel there at the field. Obviously, the people in the hospital. I mean, doing all the right things, and then in the end, man, you just got to pray because we've got all the science in the world, but I'm gonna be honest with you, that doesn't always do it. Because it doesn't mean that somebody. It doesn't mean that he was living right and God just chose to pick him to live. But sometimes those prayers have got to be answered. I really believe that because again, it's such a fluke thing that happens, and you're talking about 40% of the people die from that when it happens.
So let me ask you, and this you're not going to know the answer to this. I just like know your opinion, or maybe you know the answer to this. Maybe I'll be surprised.
But set the bar low.
Set the bar low.
It is Vistaprint, remember?
That's right. I still haven't seen this thing. This is the man I let stick needles into me, folks. It's all right. I'll pass out. It doesn't matter. So
we just lay you down. It's okay.
I don't know how many tackles there are a year in football, and I don't just mean the NFL.
Oh my goodness!
I mean in college.
There's no. Yeah.
And and I mean I coach football. I've seen in practice. I mean I probably see 100 tackles a night.
Right.
So, in all this time and all these, you don't really hear of this. As a matter of fact, this is like maybe the first, second, third time that I've ever heard of it. And I'm not a young man.
Very obscure.
It's wild.
Because you're talking about, and I would have to look this. I think it's somewhere, you're talking in the hundredths to thousandths of a second.
Right.
And so if you think about that,
right,
how quickly that actually is.
Oh yeah.
When somebody's running full speed and they hit you in that moment. I mean, if it's a we'll just say it's like, I don't know, 300ths of a second.
Yeah.
Well, that's nothing.
Yeah.
And so the odds of that ever happening, very obscure. And I don't know the actual numbers. I probably should have looked that up. But it is such a small chance. That's why you don't see this much.
Yeah.
And that's why people, like Bart Scott was talking on that garbage about how T. Higgins he shouldn't lower his head and this, that. It's like, that's a football move.
Come on.
And the odds of that happening. And then why, jackass, are you trying to, I mean, T. Higgins was devastated.
Completely
over
devastated.
This happening. And then you're
going to the hospital to try to get in.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
And you going to say something like that. And I was just like, oh my goodness. The odds of this happening are you should never see it. And that's why, this is the first time I think true, like blunt force trauma, commotion. Of course, I don't know that I've ever seen it in football. I know people have had things happen.
Sure.
But I don't know, in all the football seasons that we've watched, I don't know that I've ever seen this exact thing happen.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty incredible. And well, even more so incredible now because he's up and the breathing tube has been removed. I thought for sure, I'm like, if this guy lives, there's going to be neurological damage. I don't know how long he went without oxygen.
Not long.
Yeah. So
because they were, like I said, the moment he fell, go to the cart because I don't like the way he fell. They knew from the very moment, and they were out there instantaneously because he was out. I bet you that he was maybe a minute.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they, from what I have seen, I mean, they had his helmet off, his pads off. I mean, and they were working on him fast. You can make it about 4-ish minutes with no oxygen and not have a risk of any significant, brain injury. And so, like I said, the first responders, the fact that they knew he didn't have a pulse. They knew that he was in grave condition. That fast action saved his life.
So,
and anybody can do CPR. I mean, it's good to be trained in it, so because you have to deliver it correctly.
Right.
But you can teach people to do it that are not healthcare associated people.
I have been certified.
Right. That's right. And that's what I'm saying. And it's important.
That should scare the hell out of everybody.
And it's important to know because you just never know what could happen. Now, of course, these were healthcare personnel people. And I mean, actually, it was interestingly, one of the assistant athletic trainers was actually the one doing the chest compression.
Right.
So, again, that shows you don't have to be a physician, a PA, a nurse practitioner, a nurse, a med tech. I mean, this was somebody in more of the sports medicine, physical therapy, athletic training world. able to deliver, and he goes through training to learn. I mean, obviously he learns the human body,
Right.
but he was the one actually doing it and did an excellent job, and was the person who actually did the physical act of saving Damar Hamlin's life.
Yeah. It's amazing it's amazing he's alive, and watching like kind of the fallout from everything, and Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. I mean, the worst thing that I ever had to go through as a broadcaster doing a game was like a lightning delay. And then one time they came on the field and took a kid off in a stretcher, but we had got word from the sidelines that it was all precautionary. They felt like he was probably fine, maybe a semi-fractured leg. But they were worried about. You
just don't want to take a chance.
He was it was kind of like he was in shock a little bit, and that was, I think, throwing him off, a little bit. Like he was, it was like he had a crack in his leg. That was one thing, but he was so scared, as I would be too. So they thought maybe something else was wrong.
His response level was not good, and
so they brought an ambulance on the field, and we had to kind of talk through that, and so. But I mean, for Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, I mean, I for the job they were stuck doing, that what they wanted to do was turn the cameras off and go down the field. I guarantee that's what they wanted to do.
Absolutely.
But they couldn't. Their job was to stand up there and talk about it, and I thought they did a good job. And I don't give ESPN a lot of credit, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to take most of that away.
But not from them.
Not from them. Those guys.
And you think about Troy Aikman too. Think about how many times he has been hit in his career, and he's like, I could have been one. So some of that starts setting in. You're like,
well, they were choking up. I mean, they were choking up because
so number one, anybody that saw, and of course you don't see it. I mean, if you've ever seen real CPR, and they're sitting there in the booth watching real CPR,
right?
So real CPR is violent.
Yes,
it is very violent. It is not what you see on TV.
No.
I mean, you are basically trying to make that person's chest a pancake.
Yeah.
I mean, you are depressing about 1.5 inches deep. I mean, that's a significant amount of compression down. I'm going to get that wrong on the exact amount. My wife's going to tear me up because my wife, you may not know, Laura's actually a CPR instructor.
Yeah.
She's CPR certified.
That's right.
I think it's 1.5. Anyway. But it's a good pressure amount, and so when you're doing it, and then the speed, 30 compressions to 2 breaths, you're trying.
It's exhausting to do,
and so that's another thing. If you do it long enough, you get into that 15 to 20 minute realm. The average person, now they actually become a cardiovascular risk because they are exhausting themselves doing CPR.
Right.
That's why if you have the opportunity to tag in and out, it's not a bad idea to do that.
Sure.
And of course, you do pulse checks, things, and basically, as long as the interruption is not longer than 10 seconds, you can still continue to do what you're doing. But you want to minimize as much break as possible. But if you're getting tired, let somebody else come in there. You don't need to be a hero and end up in a mess yourself.
Right. So everybody watching, and I'm sure Joe and Troy and everybody probably, I mean, I thought he had passed away, right? I thought he died on the field. And so
he did.
Because
you got to understand, they brought him back. That's the key. So when you say that, he really did. And so you saw a guy die.
Yeah.
And with the life-saving measures that we have come to understand and can take advantage of, they saved his life.
Yeah,
and so again, it was one of the doctors at the University of Cincinnati Hospital said, because the first thing he said was, "Who won the game?" Which was good, because like, okay, that's a higher level of thoughts. Not only, hey, I woke up and I realized something's weird, but who won the ball game? He's in there, so that's good. It's like he remembers the last thing that was happening. But the guy said, yeah, Damar, you won the game of life because you were dead. So basically, and not to minimize that as, it's a game of life, but he was dead.
Pretty important though. I mean,
he was dead. He was dead. He was dead, and they saved him. And it's just one of those, you're very thankful for.
Well, and to point out what I mean by saying,
I know. I just
was that he was dead. And his funeral,
and you saw him, and
his funeral would have been this week.
That's correct. Right. Would have been
and
just a tragedy, just a true tragedy.
And so so then the questions start happening about what do we do with this game? Do we continue to play? Do we not continue to play? Because here's the the precedent for that. and the only thing that we can compare it to is when someone gets hit and they're carted off the field. It happens all the time.
Knocked out, neck injury, something along those lines where their consciousness has been altered.
Right.
And you're worried, are they paralyzed or is something going on? That's the closest thing.
And it's never even been a question, right?
Right.
If it takes 40 minutes on the field,
right,
the teams will come out and warm up again, and then they'll play. Like, it's never a question. I understand completely this was different than that. Totally get it. So,
and I think
by the NFL just questioning, should we play or not? I don't. People are pretty upset with the NFL. But what do they have to compare it to? The only thing they have it to compare it to are situations where they keep playing.
Right.
So I think then you leave it up to the teams and you say, guys, what do you want to do here? And I think both teams were like, yeah, we're done.
Yeah, and Coach Zach Taylor really was giving Coach Sean McDermott quite a bit of praise and saying, I go over because he came over and I did see that. He comes over on the sideline, he's talking to him, and he said the first thing that Coach McDermott said was, I need to be at the hospital with my player. I don't need to be coaching this game. And I think that put it into perspective. And so I think when you've got that thought, and Zach Taylor obviously felt the same way.
Right.
I don't think you were going to get them to come back out and play anyway. But people were saying the NFL gave them 5 minutes, and they're saying that didn't happen. The teams are saying that. They're saying nobody said we had to get back out there. They said Joe Burrow starts warming back up because that's what he's done anytime anybody's ever been hurt.
That's right.
But it was not a directive from the NFL.
Well, and
but they had to talk about it because they'd be like, what are we going to do?
Well, and it's what people don't realize as well. And they were so upset. They're like, why is the NFL? I saw one person, some flipping moron that works out in the Midwest somewhere on Twitter. I can't remember her name. But I mean, she's like tweeting stuff, and I'm like, go. I don't know. You're whatever you are. You're 19 years old. You don't know what you're talking about. So I keep reading her tweets, and she keeps saying stuff like, "It's disgraceful that it's been 40 minutes since this injury, and the NFL hasn't postponed or canceled this game yet." Let me tell you how the real world works. Okay, the NFL is an organization. The players are a union.
Right.
The NFL can't just do that. They have to discuss this with the players.
Right. They had multiple meetings by phone.
And that's not, and that's not, so you've got people that aren't prepared to have a meeting.
And it's a night game.
And
so it's not like,
game.
yes. I mean, yeah.
And they're waiting to see if he's okay too. So they're probably not immediately talking about this. Right. So after he goes to the hospital, then they're on the phones talking, and they're talking about different scenarios. They're not just talking about if they're going to cancel that game. They're going to talk about what happens what happens if we do postpone it? Do we just go ahead and cancel it? How do we do? What's the impact? It's a bigger conversation than what just happened there. What just happened there was an absolute tragedy. Or it could have been a tragedy, I guess we should say, because he's alive and well now. And I understand it's unprecedented, but like those conversations had to take place. And every time they would go to, who does the sidelines? Lisa Salters.
Yeah, Lisa Salters.
So every time they go to Lisa's like back there, and she's like, well, there's been people going in and out of the locker rooms. That's the NFL talking to the teams.
Right.
And that was like 15 minutes later.
Right.
So, I mean, this person, and she wasn't the only one. There was a bunch of idiots out there tweeting that like, why can't the NFL just do a snap judgment? You can't. There's just too many people involved.
And I think that's I think that's just a you don't, because this would never happen. Somebody commenting when they don't have all the facts of the situation, and not understanding that there is a process to the way that things work.
Yeah.
And that does not mean that everybody's not devastated over what has happened. Everybody's sad. Everybody's tore up. I think they knew what they were going to do.
Right.
But you still have to like work through all that and not just, oh yeah, the game's canceled. Well, what does that mean for everything else? And so I think that's where people commenting on that, they just assume, oh, you just do it. Just snap your fingers.
It just doesn't work that way.
No. And that's, I mean, it doesn't work that way in medicine. I mean, I have people coming in and they just think, oh, I can just magically, rub some snake oil on you or snap my finger.
A little salve.
And a little salve, always a little salve. And now the salve does work. But that just fixes it. Or they think, well, this is an absolute answer. And it's like, well, but no, it doesn't work that way. There's different scenarios, just like a differential diagnosis. There's different things that can be going on here that we have to take into consideration before we just say, aha.
Right.
You know, and so you don't want to do a gestalt. You want to try to think deeper about the situation, and that does take time. You can't just rush to the judgment because then you're probably going to make the wrong call. And so, yes, I think everybody knew that they weren't coming back out to play, but you still have to get everything together before you officially make that announcement. Like I said, there's a union. There's the executive organization of the NFL. They have to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And it's not like, hey, sup, big gulp, say, cancel the game, and that's it. That's not how that works.
Right.
You know, like I said, it was a night game, so you're trying to get everybody, you know, because maybe not everybody was watching the game.
Right.
And so you're trying to rally everybody, get them together, and organize it in the middle of the evening, you know,
right,
and that ain't easy to do.
You got to talk to both owners of both teams.
Yep, owners, coaches.
You got to talk to the NFLPA.
Yeah.
Roger Goodell's on a. So I mean, like, and it's probably not everybody on the call at the same time.
And again, these are not 30-second conversations.
No.
And so I think that's what gets lost. I think that's where people just don't. They just don't have the information. It's like this isn't just a 10-second conversation where you make that gestalt decision.
Right.
I really believe they were never going back out there.
No.
But you can't beat them up because I mean they certainly kept it delayed. So it's not like they were like, oh yeah, because if they were going back out there, they'd already been back out there about 5 minutes later, you know, and that didn't happen. So you knew what was going to happen. It's just they had to work all that out. And it's a shame that people just jump. Man, people just want to.
I know.
It's just they just want to beat. They want to cause everybody a problem, beat up everybody. You know, all this organization is the devil. It's like, well, maybe it is, but maybe it's not. And you know, you ain't exactly doing an awesome job working for, you know, wherever out in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Why don't we pick on you a little bit?
Well, yeah. I mean, and I'm glad you brought up other jobs because this kind of leads me into my not rant. We all
You've been fighting hard. I know there's been a couple moments.
We all know how I feel about ESPN. And here's
Booger is your favorite.
So here, oh God, that guy. So here's what I'll say.
I'm trying to fluff you up a little bit.
Here's what I'll say. What I'll say is like I was off the next day. I didn't go back to work from the holidays until Wednesday. So Tuesday I was off. So that was what I did. I turned on ESPN. Let's see how he's doing.
Right.
And you know, there really wasn't a whole lot of updates. He had made it through the night and that's about it. And doctors were saying everything we expect to have happened has happened.
Right. Way too early to tell.
Way too early.
Way too early to tell.
So I'm watching ESPN.
He ain't dead. Thank you, Jesus.
Right.
That's it. And that's all you could hope for at that point.
And so I'm watching ESPN and you know, and they're talking about it and you know, it's all they're really talking about. And I understand that. And they have some like former players on, you know, talking about football and the game. And I can't remember who this was. I'm trying to remember, but it was on that terrible show First Take. With I was flipping between that and we'll get to Skip Bayless in a minute because Shannon Sharp wasn't even on the broadcast that morning, so it was just Skip. And then I was watching Get Up with Mike Greenberg as well, and I like Greeny. And they're all talking about the same thing. And so they bring a player on, and he was talking about how sad this was. It's 100%. It's totally sad. Could have been. It's a tragedy. We don't know if he's going to make it or whatever. These guys, I know they weren't thinking about football that night after it happened. All this stuff I agreed with, and he went into this thing about how we only worry about NFL players when something like this happens, and it's a violent game and we should pay more attention to, players and their needs. And he started talking about players that had committed suicide and this sort of thing. And, and he said, and the fans just watched the game and whatever. And I immediately, and this is just where my mind went. My dad was a coal miner, not a safe occupation
in multiple regards.
Because
if you don't ever fall victim to the mine caving in, then you get to live with black lung.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Correct. That's correct. Right.
And so I start thinking about, other sports too, right? And he was like, and people just don't understand these combat sports and everything. I'm like, the key thing you're saying there is sports. You are an elite athlete, 100%. But you are electing to do a sport
Correct.
That is a collision sport. If you're a boxer, you are electing to do that as a profession, and that's what you're doing. And you're getting paid a ton of money for it. I don't want you to die. I don't even want you to get injured, unless you're Tom Brady.
And I want you to manage your money.
Manage your money
so that you will be taken care of.
So I'm listening to this, and I'm like, let me just tell you right now, if somebody fell over dead when my dad was working in the coal mines, I don't know what their policies were, but I guarantee they would have hauled them out of there, and everybody else would have finished their shift.
That's correct.
So
and they didn't die in the mine, so you know. Just like when I worked in the engine plant. Nobody really dies in the engine plant.
Oh, that's right.
You're in the ambulance, and they are resuscitating you, and you are not dead.
Right.
And that is a very, you take that very serious. And guess what? Everybody else keeps working.
That's right.
And that's just the way it is.
So I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, buddy, you live a charmed life to be able to have played the years that he played, made the millions of dollars that he made, and now complains about the same organization that gave him those opportunities as if they did something wrong. And it just drove, I'm like, this is, to have this Yahoo on there talking, it's like it's disrespectful to, and my brother was in the military. We were just talking about that. I mean, like, you had a friend who was in the military. So, I mean, we all know people that are in the military, and you talk about a dangerous job. Right. I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot more dangerous than bullets flying at you.
Right.
I mean, if you're a professional athlete and you're putting your body, you're exerting your body, you're doing that to your body, and something happens, I'm sorry that it happens to you. You're well compensated. I mean, I don't do that.
I think this is tricky. So here's what I'd say. So, like, for example, for the military, you do have covered health care,
right,
through the VA for life.
True.
Now, you can. I'm not going to speak on, because I have
the quality of the care.
Right. That's not what we're talking about. But you do have that. And if you're older and some sort of problem pops up that could be related to your military service, they do give you disability.
Yeah.
And you do get a certain percentage of disability.
That's right.
Now, I'm not taking this guy's side, so I want to back that up. I should have said that first. But so what I do, and I think the NFL's trying, and a lot of these things, it's almost like smoking. There's this undercurrent thought of, well, the NFL knew that everybody was going to get brain damage, and they've just ignored it and not done anything about it. You can't prove that. It's just like smoking. It's like, oh, the tobacco companies, and the tobacco companies did know, but they also wanted to make a bunch of money.
Sure.
They know that cigarettes cause cancer, cigarettes hurt your lungs, emphysema, all the heart attack, stroke, all the things. And yet they're still marketing. This is one of these where, so like military, VA, you get the disability. They do pay you more money based upon your disability.
Right.
So I do think that as they continue to work through this, trying to help folks who do, whether it's CTE or whatever the condition may be, I do think it's a positive thing and a better look for the NFL to try to help with that. Now, what I don't like here in this situation is the guy chose to use this for his platform for something else, rather than just try to be supportive of Damar Hamlin and the things that happened for him. He's focusing on this other, and I guess you could try to say it kind of ties in, but it gets frustrating because you're also making an assumption that we don't care about anybody as a human.
Right. Right.
And we just look at him as a piece of meat. And that's not necessarily true. And you voluntarily, you made the decision to play football.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's a financial decision, because that's the way they can make the most amount of money in any career that they might ever pursue, because those guys they're just blessed with that athletic talent that we can't even imagine. And so they may not even love football.
Right.
But playing football gets them out of a very difficult situation, whether that's home life or school life or whatever.
Sure.
That's their way out of a bad situation. And so, right, there's something to be said about you're busting up on people when really, I mean, you chose to do it. You did make the choice.
Right.
And that's sticky. I think if the NFL continues to try to make more of a concerted effort just to follow former players and understand what's happened and things of that sort. I think that'll be a much better look for them moving forward. But it is a shame when you got somebody that's I get where you're coming from.
Two points. 2 points. Number one, all these people on ESPN that are saying the same thing as this player was, talking about the NFL, and they don't really care about their players and everything. What if Roger Goodell said, hey, I met with all the owners, we've decided to dissolve the league?
Right, because it's dangerous.
Would ESPN be okay with that? No. They'd be outraged that he's dissolving the league because there goes a revenue source.
Billions of dollars.
Number two is, I'm not a smart guy, but you
just need a little Vistaprint.
That's all I need. That's all I need. I just call them up. And
it doesn't take that much. It's just a little Vistaprint.
I'm not a smart guy, but when I was a kid, I didn't have to have anybody tell me, and I'm talking when I was young.
Right, sure.
I didn't have to have anybody in the world tell me that if I hit my head enough times, some bad shit might happen. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, now we're talking about CTE and we're talking about all this stuff.
Right.
And so you got to think about the evolution of the game, right? We find out that, there are performance enhancing drugs and steroids and stuff.
All the things
that also later can cause you to go crazy and kill your family, right? Like
or make your heart explode.
Or make your heart explode.
Kill your liver or whatever it may be.
All the above.
Right, absolutely.
And so, the NFL said, all right, we're going to start banning these substances and stuff.
Right.
It's an evolution. Nobody knew about CTE, but let me just tell you something. If we have never found out about CTE, is it surprising to you that if you take so many shots to the head that it might mess something up?
That's correct. Right.
I mean, what the hell is wrong with people? What?
Because the same people that are complaining about that, it was out of their mind before it became a thing.
Yeah.
Because they actually weren't thinking about it either.
No.
Or they didn't care because it was helping them achieve whatever they need to be achieving.
I mean, it's like if you sit down, if you go to Dairy Queen, which I love me some Dairy Queen.
Meet me at DQ.
And you get the chicken strip basket and about 3 Blizzards. Do you think that's good for your body? Of course not. When you line up and play football, does anybody think that what you're getting ready to do is good for your body?
Right.
And I don't even care if you're just coaching.
Right,
none of it's good for you.
Oh, no.
Basketball, it's not good for you. You're exerting yourself to a point. I mean, they're losing 5,000 calories during a game if you're lucky.
Yeah.
When you get in a boxing
and
ring,
your joints will hate you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Particularly the guys that are like 6'7" and 6'8". Your knees are going to help you.
Your body, your knees and your hips and your ankles.
And then you're a professional boxer and you're beating the shit out of each other for 12 rounds. Do you think that's good for your body? I don't understand why we don't need research. We need to go back to the guy that the government pays to see how long it takes ketchup to come out of the bottle. I'm more okay with that than I am this stuff because the NFL, everybody's trying to protect their own money.
We could do mustard too. Wouldn't that be good?
Yeah, it would be good. Everybody's trying to protect their own money.
That's correct.
ESPN wants to complain about something that is a huge revenue stream for them.
That's correct.
And if it was gone, ESPN would probably cease to exist.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And so
it's bad. I mean, that's bad.
And so it's just ridiculous. And the NFL's trying to protect their revenue stream, right? They have to say, hey, we're going to start making helmets safer. We're going to have to, start doing all this stuff and all this technology and
changing hits.
Changing hits.
This is legal. This is not legal. You will be fined. You will be suspended. There's been a lot. There has been a lot of improvements. But yeah, in the end, you got to have some hitting in football. That's just the way
people
it is.
Are going to stop watching if you don't. Right. I mean, if it goes to a situation where it is like flag football, touch or something,
ain't
nobody going to watch
hand touch. Oh my god,
nobody going to watch that mess.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
I mean, there's a reason. There was somebody years ago, and this is terrible to say, but I'm just going to say it because I wasn't the first person to say it. Someone said, do you know why people come to watch boxing? Do you know why it's such a fascinating sport? And he said, it's because there is a possibility of death. And he said, and that's exciting for people. He said, some people watch things for the love of it and the art of it, but a lot of people just show up to watch boxing.
The true violent nature
because they want to see somebody get knocked down and carted off. That's just kind of the truth. And you hate to say that, but that a lot of people watch this. I mean,
they're watching it for a heavy knockout.
Yeah.
Not just a TKO where they're just getting whooped. It's no, you knocked them so bad, their head snaps back, their mouthpiece is up 10 feet in the air. You know, they're basically having a seizure right there in the ring because they've just been rocked. And that's and people want to see it.
And then, so after all the event happened on Monday or during Monday, a lot of people were tweeting out. Of course, you said everybody looked to Twitter to see what was going on. I'm going to read you the tweet from Skip Bayless.
Oh yeah,
so I've got it up here.
Very infamous.
And then we'll talk about it. But so Skip, while I think this was while he wasn't in the ambulance yet. I don't think at this point. But Skip Bayless, if you want to follow him, it's real Skip Bayless, just in case. No doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of the game, but how? This late in the season, a game of this magnitude is crucial to the regular season outcome, which suddenly seems so irrelevant. That's what he said.
And he got roasted.
I read that, and you and I were talking before we went on. I'm like, that was the same conversation Steven and I were having. Like, this is terrible. Like, they're going to have to postpone or cancel this game.
Right. But what does that look like?
And so that he said what we were all kind of thinking, and then he gets destroyed for it. And Terrell Owens like retweets it and said, "Worst human ever." Well, Terrell Owens, Hitler was pretty bad too. Just throwing that out there. I can name a few.
Man, Terrell Owens, I don't know that he's the best human either.
I don't think he is.
That's the thing. It's
from your glass house. Don't be throwing rocks at it.
Right. Don't be judging because if your house is glass, you throw a stone, you might have one thrown back at you. So here's what I'll say about that. Number one, Skip Bayless likes a little bit of shock factor. He always has.
100%.
I wish that he hadn't tweeted that. Because
he probably does too.
Because here's the other thing. It's just like email or text message. You say something,
right?
And if we're sitting here talking about it with our mannerisms, the inflection of our voice, you can tell. I mean, if we're being sarcastic, dudes, it's like, they're being sarcastic, or we're on a rant and we're actually, PO'd about it. You can tell. Or if we're laughing, you legit know that we're laughing. The last piece of that, it seems so irrelevant now. Like, that's the part that sticks out to me because I think he's really saying none of that really matters, but what are they going to do?
Right. That's exactly
and instead it was like he's talking about they need to continue this game. What a terrible person. I'm like, I don't know that that's really what he was trying to say.
I don't think that.
And I think it again. You read it, and that's where that can get misconstrued so easy. Text message, email, always misconstrued because people are going to read it the way that they want to, and there's no way to know because you can't see him, you don't hear him, so the other senses are not involved in piecing together what's happening in the environment.
Yeah.
And that's why you don't write that. You go on your show and you say it, and then people can sit there and say, okay, he was really talking about really and truly just how awful this is for Damar Hamlin. How in the world, the football seems so irrelevant right now.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit scary. What's the NFL actually going to do with this?
Right.
How does this? And of course, what happens a couple of days later, they come up with a plan. Mm-hmm. And the Cincinnati Bengals are the first people that are complaining about it. And they got some gripe about it. A coin toss to decide home field advantage.
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of crap. But again, it was because it was right there in the moment, but he was thinking what everybody else was thinking, and he just opened his mouth.
Yeah.
And in today's world, you can't do that.
It's just...
And I think if like I said, if he was sitting there in a booth talking about it, I think you get a different feel for what's really trying to be said.
And Shannon Sharp, of course, missed the show the next morning. And Shannon said he had some trouble with it because he had watched one of his friends get almost paralyzed and lay on the field, and like he said that he said I just couldn't do it the next day. He's like, it was just bothersome, and so the next day he comes on and like he said, I wish Skip would take the tweet down and all this stuff, and it's like, first of all, I would never take anything down because why? You've already said it. I mean, if you want to go back and reread it, I mean, what good is me taking it down? So
right. Because everybody's already seen it and saved it somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's okay. Because I kind of, kind of along those lines, you see all those people, I put this tweet out there and then I took it and then it was deleted later. Well, you already said it. And so
Right.
if it's like, but you put it out there and somebody got a screenshotted it. Is that a word? Screenshotted it?
Sure.
Sure it is.
Sure.
But you know what I'm saying? And it's like, but everybody already saw it. So what's the difference? Yeah, I agree. And I agree.
I mean, it's just fun. It's fun to listen to ESPN talk about, I loved ESPN educating me on what their job was. I loved that. Our job is to come here and talk about blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, you guys, every time I get sucked into watching ESPN, I get more and more pissed off. These guys, oh my God. That thing started as such a great organization. That was so cool years ago.
Yeah.
Chris Berman and Tom Jackson doing NFL prime time. And I mean, two guys that really cared. And, I'm drawing a blank now, but I'm sitting here looking at all the anchors that they used to have and how great it was. And it was fun. And they really talked about sports. And now it's just become this opinionated, almost reality show.
Oh, yeah. I mean, right.
And a platform for just pure stupidity at times. Just pure stupidity.
Truth.
I don't understand. It's like, I mean, again, I really wanted
Stuart Scott.
Yeah.
Keith Oberman.
Keith was great. Dan Patrick.
Dan Patrick, right?
Yeah.
Right. Reese Davis. I mean, all these people got their start, and you're like, gosh, these, and it's a different.
It's one of the reasons the only real show, the only things I watch are Monday Night Football on ESPN, and then I watch College Game Day. Because I think those are about the only true forms of actual sports that I want to watch on ESPN. Unless they actually come out with ESPN 8, the Ocho, then I'm all about that. I'm all about me some dodgeball.
That's awesome.
But enough about ESPN. But the good news is Damar Hamlin is up. He's not up. He's still in the hospital, but he's talking, breathing on his own.
He FaceTimed with,
and he FaceTimed the team.
And that's huge. Like I said, because neurologically he is intact.
Yeah,
that was the thing. Once he didn't die, because they had his heart rhythm restored and they had him sedated and intubated. The fact that neurologically he's intact, because that's actually one of the big criteria for getting the breathing tube, the endotracheal tube out, is mental status.
Right.
And so that the fact that he was able to be alert and aware, and also along those same lines was able to, if he had any lung secretions, clearing those are two of the big things you always look at before you take the tube out. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. And I don't know how long he's going to have to stay in the hospital.
And he'll probably have to have a little bit of rehab just to kind of, because I mean, anytime you're in the bed for, sedated like that for days, and then just still kind of having to kind of lay around, he'll have to work himself out, because I mean what you lose from that is it's not just like taking a day off from training,
right? I
mean, this sets him back weeks in terms of needing to. I
would imagine if he comes back to play in the NFL, to be next year. I mean, that's what I would.
I think it's going to be interesting. The question is, will he come back?
Yeah,
will he come back? And because right now, based upon because obviously they do an ultrasound of the heart and echocardiogram, and there's not any talk of it being abnormal in any way or anything like that. I mean, basically, it's just he had one bad hit, and that just changed everything. So I mean, theoretically, he could come back and play, and but. I mean, my take
tough
on that, of course, I mean, if that was the thing that you did and you loved, it'd be like if somebody told me I couldn't practice medicine anymore. I'd be like, I love medicine. Now, the administrative stuff, I don't love that.
Yeah.
All the computer charting and all that stuff. But if I couldn't be a doctor anymore, like I would be pretty distressed, and it's not on his terms.
That's the thing.
And that's what's tricky. And so you just wonder, but at the same time, it's like, gosh. But I died from getting hit. They brought me back. Do you really tempt fate again? Even though the odds of that it's basically zero. I mean, that should never happen to the same person twice.
Right.
And so, but what do you do? Because there's always a chance.
There's always a chance.
Scary stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm glad he's healthy, or getting healthy and doing better and up and talking and all that stuff. Right. And how long would you have to stay in the hospital?
Depends. I mean, the tube's out now. They're probably just kind of seeing, kind of how he responds over the next couple of days. I mean, he could be out. So let's see, that happened Monday. I mean, we might even see something where, and of course they're going to be a little more cautious just because of the nature of everything.
Right.
And the even some of the high profile atmosphere of this too. But I mean, you could see him getting out within about a week or so.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he's awake, he's neurologically intact. He doesn't have other health problems.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And assuming that the testing that they've done has not shown anything else being a problem, his discharge plan is going to be, we're going to get him some rehab to try to get him stronger again, but he's not going to have to take a bunch of medicine. He's not going to have to do a bunch of other things. There was no surgery involved.
Right.
So
what do you think the likelihood of him having any structural damage to his heart?
So that's why you would do the echo.
Right.
And like I said, they haven't said anything. And so if there was some damage, it would have shown on the echo after the impact.
Do you think that's likely? If someone's heart stops?
I would. So you can. I think in this scenario, that's where him being young, immediate CPR. They've already looked at this, and so the immediate aftermath is where you really worry about. Okay, what has happened? So the odds of him right now having any long-term stuff, I doubt it, because I think, and it may come forward, but no, he's got normal motion of the heart now. His valves are okay. He just got hit in the wrong spot.
That's wild.
Based on what we know right now. I mean, they may come out with some blockbuster and say, well, actually, he had X, Y, and Z happen, and this is some congenital thing, and that's what happened. But nobody's saying that to this point. So at this point, blunt force trauma, VFib, he's down cardiac arrest, brought back, nothing structural that anybody can find most likely at this point, and he should have a complete recovery.
Yeah, that's...
The key on this is if you make it, if you're the 60% that makes it, you don't necessarily have any long-term problems.
Wow.
And very unlikely that you'll have any long-term problems.
Well, that's awesome.
From that specific
thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you get older. Your blood pressure's creeping up.
Right.
You got to watch these things because that can create problems for you down the line. So, I mean, he could have some other health problems, but from this episode itself, right now, it seems like everything's good. Because the noodle's what you worry the most about.
Right.
And he is neurologically intact. And that's the blessing.
I can tell you right now, like the last time I went and had like my throat stretched or whatever, I laid on the couch for like 2 days.
Sure.
Because I'm a wimp. So.
Well, I mean, but also that doesn't feel great to have that be done.
It doesn't. It does not feel good.
But it's good that you can do it so you're not choking on your food.
Yeah.
So
that's also very helpful.
Right. Just choking on your food, that's not good.
I love
especially if it gets choked and you get no relief.
That's definitely. And then you worry about like taking a drink of something because I'm afraid it's gonna, so yeah.
That's it. Man.
It's not fun.
No, not a bit.
It's not easy being me.
I understand that. It's not easy being green.
It's not.
It's not even being Dave Man.
It's not.
Of the Dave and Doc podcast.
To kind of go to something less serious, I don't always listen to their podcasts, and I don't always listen to the whole thing. As most people do, they listen to the parts they want and they move on. Same thing they do with ours and everybody else.
Exactly.
That's what they do. Even like Joe Rogan. I mean, I'll listen to some of his, but he did have a really cool beekeeper on. Her name's Erica Thompson. She's this gorgeous beekeeper, and she like knows everything there is to know about bees. It's absolutely fascinating, and she like goes and rescues bees, and I'll show it to you after we get off here. But
oh my goodness.
I've actually reached out to her and see if she'll be on the podcast because I'd love to talk to her. I've never seen anybody that knows more about bees than she does. It's unbelievable.
That's insane.
Texas Bee Works.
Texas Bee Works
is the name of her company, I guess. I don't know. She rescues bees. Yes.
I wonder how one gets into that.
I'm not sure. It just doesn't seem like something, maybe she watched a little too much Winnie the Pooh, and
maybe she's just beautiful.
Hey yo. You remember the commercial?
Be ready.
You remember the commercial?
Be true.
The commercial years ago about natural gas, when people were starting to get natural gas, ran to their homes, and it says, "It is a beautiful thing." That's what they said. I'm like, that's ridiculous. So anyway, I'm listening to Chris.
Or was it BT Beautiful?
BT Beautiful. No, it should have been. So I'm listening to a portion.
Yes, on the lighter note.
Of Carissa Thompson and Aaron Andrews' podcast. It's called Calm Down. If you want to listen, it's probably better to watch that one. Just let you figure that out on your own. But it is funny to listen to those two talk. They've had they've actually had very similar careers and lots of other things that are similar about those two as well. So they got a lot in common.
That's probably how they got hooked up on this too.
Probably so. So Carissa was talking about shopping for the holidays, and she was buying some gifts at a Victoria's Secret. I don't know if it was a Victoria's Secret or not. Actually, I don't know. Here's what I know: she was buying.
Personables.
She was buying. She said it.
Personables.
She said she's buying lingerie. Is what she said.
Dave.
That's what she said. I'm not making it up. That's what she said. So, and she was. It was Christmas gifts. So here's where it's. So she said that she goes to this store to buy this, and she's like, there's no help at the store. She's like, nobody's working. She said I could have just stolen all this stuff. And she says, I'm in a hurry. She said, because we got to record some stuff for the show or whatever.
Right.
And she says she finally finds this girl and she's like, hey, here are the things I'm looking for. Write down my credit card number and just get them for me. And I'll come back and pick them up. Right. And the girl's like, oh, great. Okay, whatever. So she said, but here's the problem. She's like, she's the only girl in the store. She's wearing the lingerie section. She's not wearing a bra. And she said, it's clear that she's not wearing a bra. And Carissa Thompson said, when did that become a thing where we can just go to work? And that's not, and they were talking about, and Aaron Andrews said, can you imagine me doing that on the sidelines? I couldn't get away with that. How, and it started, and we were talking about people in society in general. Nobody wants to work. There's help wanted signs. Arby's is probably up to $20 an hour now just to get you there.
No.
Which means my roast beef sandwiches are going to cost more money, and I'm not happy about that. And you go to stores.
They stopped making potato wedges.
Or they stopped making, yeah.
They did.
They did?
They did. So I think somebody told me that they stopped it because of the expense. Yeah, the potato wedge. I think it's no more.
No more potato wedge. Mm-hmm.
Subway has changed their menu. The Philly, the Outlaw, the Monster. They have you can order by number now. That was unheard of. Now you can still do your regular thing, get a sweet onion chicken teriyaki, and get whatever you want. But they now have numbers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and there's and
they still have to look back and look at the board to make sure they're getting it right.
The Taco Bell here, you either have to order it on the app or order it in the store on the screen. They're not going to come to the counter. You're not going to order that anymore.
Lots of McDonald's have started doing that. They still give you the option to go to the counter.
Yeah.
But we go to the counter because of the kids, and we were coming back. Where was that? This was a little while back. It was maybe a year ago or something. I guess we were coming back from Florida, and the woman, her face when we were coming to the counter was like, and I was like, bish, you don't. I said, bish, trying to do good, but I was like,
Were you wearing a bra?
No, man, I like to let it hang out. Oh, shit! Commando.
But what's happened though? Nobody wants
party on top, business down low.
Right.
All business.
It's a party in the USA. Yeah. Are you guys having the same problem at your office? Having a hard time finding people to work and come into work and stay there and
yes, we have had that happen, particularly nursing staff, medical assistants and the like. Yes, we have had trouble with that. That is a completely new thing.
Yeah.
The other thing that you get is people may accept a job, and before they even come on board, they find what they believe to be a better job, and so you've already hired them,
right?
And then they just drop you. And I'm like, if you were waiting, then it's pretty crazy. But yes, this is the first, really over the last probably 2 years, first time in my experience in healthcare where you were having trouble finding people for jobs.
It's amazing.
It's Excuse me, I had to let that go.
I'm glad that's your microphone.
It's it. Sweet onion chicken teriyaki with everything you want.
Oh, Lord.
That you shouldn't do that on air, should you?
The onions, no. I don't want the onions.
I hate the onions.
Yeah.
But I won the sandwich.
You won the sandwich. I 2 the sandwich.
I 3 the sandwich.
I 4 the
I
sandwich.
5 the sandwich.
I 6 the
I
sandwich.
7 the sandwich.
I 8 the sandwich.
Of course you did, because it was from Subway.
Actually, I wouldn't. And for 2 reasons. I don't do Subway anymore.
I know this is
And
another side rant.
I wouldn't have eaten that sandwich because it had stuff that I wouldn't eat. Like garden stuff.
Like chicken.
No, chicken I'll eat.
It was good.
Chicken, bread, and cheese.
Pretty good. I get the pepper jack. I like a little.
I'd get the pepper jack.
I like a little pepper jack.
I'd get the pepper jack. Probably put a little Frank's on it too.
You can do that too. Yeah,
would
I
do
didn't do that. I just got the sweet onion sauce.
Yeah,
but I get all the veggies.
Yeah,
get
I
all the
don't get any
veggies.
of that.
We're getting tangential now from
Aaron
Aaron Andrews and the Calm Down
podcast.
Calm Down podcast.
But they were talking about like how there was just Carissa was talking about how there was just nobody there. She goes, I could have completely stolen whatever I wanted, and no one would have. Not only could I have done it and gotten away with it, no one would have cared that I did it. I mean, it blows me away. It blows me away.
That's
I mean,
scary.
And I don't know where Carissa lives. I'm assuming LA, right?
You haven't stalked her.
No, I haven't. I haven't looked up property records or anything. But
wonder if she lives up north.
I would imagine she lives in LA.
Well, I mean, that would make sense.
But I don't know.
That would make sense.
So I mean, I'm sure it's not a store. Oh, you know what? She actually said the name of the store. It was Nordstrom's. Is that how you say that?
Yeah, Nordstrom's.
Nordstrom's, yeah.
It's a very nice store.
So that's where she was
Looking for the personables at Nordstrom's.
looking for the personables at Nordstrom's. Nordstrom's.
Very interesting.
But yeah. So it made me, so I mean, like, you go to just like your regular store now, or you go to like to your Chick-fil-A or whatever. It's amazing to me that like, there's just nobody working anymore. Nobody, it's like,
And it's everywhere.
I know it's amazing.
It's not just right. It's not just
But
one.
some of the numbers have to be wrong, right? Like, I mean, if you talk about Knox County, like the unemployment rate is pretty low right now in Knox County. So, like, how can that be?
Because I don't
somebody's
think,
numbers are wrong.
You know about statistics. Dave.
I know.
I don't think it's right. Well, just like when they said that the level of unemployment had corrected all the way back. This was earlier this year under Biden, that all 22 million jobs or whatever had been completely restored. And I'm like, I'm not buying this, because there's help wanted everywhere you go, and it's not just here in Knoxville.
Right.
You can be in Memphis, you can be in Virginia, you can be in Kentucky, you can be down in Florida.
It's true.
Places are like, we don't have any help, we had to close.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did all these jobs get restored and then nobody has enough people to work?
When I was shopping for a truck, I've been shopping for months for a truck, and we were up
Years.
It's been a while. We were up in Kentucky actually twice, to 2 different dealerships, and we went to I forget the name of the town, but we went to that dealership. Lindsay went with me and found a truck that I liked, and we were trying to work out a deal. And this poor guy was there. He was working with us, and he was working with 2 other couples at the same time.
And that's hard when you're trying to sell cars.
And he kept saying, man, I'm sorry. We were there so long. Lindsay went and grabbed us lunch, and we ate it on a couch and watched College Game Day on a couch at the dealership. That's how long we had to wait. And it was fine. I understood. But, yeah, I mean, they just had no employees there. It's like you can't even find people to sell cars.
Nobody wants to work.
Speaking of which, quick story. I finally did purchase a little pickup truck.
Yes.
Pretty happy about it.
Yes.
Got a little pickup truck. I did buy it in Kentucky. Not that same dealership,
You
but a
like
different
Kentucky.
dealership. I do. I'm starting to like the bluegrass state.
There you go.
We were really close to Lexington. Like really, we were like 5 miles from University of Kentucky. Stephen and I checked to see if there was a basketball game, because we're just going to stay, go to Rupp and watch a game. But sadly, they had played that earlier that day.
That while you were working out your deal.
While we were working out the deal, and I actually did get the truck there. But I was going to buy it locally, and I'm not going to say the name of the dealership, because that probably is.
But it is a Ford dealership.
It is a Ford dealership that is here in Knoxville.
Pretty prominent.
Pretty prominent dealership.
Which means there's about 2.
Yeah, it's
I
pretty,
got a 50% chance.
50% chance. So I go there. This is after work, and I test drove this truck, and I mean, they couldn't have been nicer, right? Like I get there and like he's like, hey man, if you want to ride it, let's go. So we just hopped in and we took it for a round, got on the interstate. I'm like, all right, okay, I like the truck, right? So we're coming in and we're talking about the deal, and I'm like, here's kind of where I'm at. This is I don't want to do any more than this or whatever.
Right, sure.
And we're talking about it's an expensive vehicle, and I get it. So they kept coming back and forth to me. And then, because I guess they saw that I hadn't left yet, they're like, okay, I think we can get him. So they go get,
They go get the closer.
They'll go get the closer, and not just the closer. They go get Hottie McHotterson to come over, right?
This is so bad.
Hottie McHotterson.
This is exactly what we're talking about society.
I
And all
know.
the stereotypes and all the things, and then this is what they go do.
They bring the 20-something-year-old over there.
The closer.
Who was attractive, right? And she comes over and she's like, hi, and I just want to go over the deal and like, we'll talk about this. And like, she's like standing up and like showing me this and this. And I'm like, I'm just sitting there thinking, you had me with old boy for a while. Then you brought another old boy over. And now you go get Hottie McHotterson to close it because you think I'm going to say, oh, wow, you're attractive. I will sign anything. When I'm not smart, folks, but I'm not that stupid. Yeah, they bring Hottie McHotterson over and
You didn't buy the truck.
I didn't buy the truck.
How about that?
He followed me all the way out to the parking lot. Like, man, you sure, man? I'm like, yeah, nah, I guess it's not, I don't need one to begin with. I don't need a truck.
Right. We're not in desperation.
No, it's not like I have a car that's falling apart or something.
Right.
So
Which
it's
is a good time. That's when it's good to be looking.
It is. And then a few weeks later, I actually did get a little pickup truck. But yeah, Hottie McHotterson comes over.
Coming to close the deal.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
No, it didn't work.
Yeah, they'll learn from
I was happy to talk to Hottie McHotterson.
They'll learn from that.
Yeah. That was her real name, folks. Hottie. No, I'm just kidding. I actually know her real name, but I'm not going to say that.
What you think was her real name.
Well, that's true.
Did she give you a business card?
It's weird. I didn't think Cinnamon is a weird first name.
Right?
I'm just kidding.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Her name,
They call me Toast.
her name was Bart Stillwell.
She was formerly married to Peppy Bennett.
That's right. This is the love child of Peppy Bennett and Bart Stillwell. Oh.
And on that note, folks, we are very thankful for you taking the time with us. You speechless. That's never happened. This is show 38, and we've never had Dave Mann speechless. It's all good, though. It was a good time. Hey, this was good stuff. We're back in the habit. We're fairly healthy.
Yeah.
Still crazy.
Still with
Vistaprint, but it's all good.
And next week we'll be able to talk about a little more playoff stuff too.
That's it.
Like in the
and
NFL.
Just remember, Vol fans, WDWTFA.
Yeah.
That's it.
Got Jim Mora back there.
Playoffs. I got fired because I said something bad about the greatest quarterback ever played for the Colts.
Yeah.
Maybe Johnny Unitas, but he did say it about Peyton Manning. And he got fired.
I thought you meant like the greatest quarterback that ever played.
I said for the Colts. I mean, he is the greatest quarterback that ever played, in my opinion. You're pointing at Jerry Rice, man. That's just the greatest receiver.
That's true.
That's not debatable.
That is not debatable. I don't think. Maybe it is. I don't know.
B12 might be in the conversation. I'm just saying.
Is he in the conversation?
Definitely
Sure.
in the conversation.
He's definitely in the conversation.
Like probably is.
I have lots of conversations about Tom Brady.
GOAT.
He's maybe an ass.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, Germany. Thank you, Canada. Thank you, everybody, just local listening to us, hanging out. We appreciate it.
We appreciate it, folks. You can get all this information on DaveandDoc.com. That's DaveAndDoc.com.
Yes.
Watch
Peace
and
out.
listen to the podcast.
Go Balls. Maybe go Bulldogs, too.
Go Niners.
Yes.
See you,
Bye.
folks.